Hey guys, Jennifer Dixon here. Today I thought I would talk to you about a yoga pose that I love to do when my low back is sore. So I have an injury to my L5. I have a herniated disc in my L5, which means that my low back has a tendency to hurt, especially if I'm not paying attention to, in yoga they're called my bandhas, keeping my transverse abdominals really strong. So having a baby, carrying the baby, and then postpartum, all that stuff, all those muscles get stretched out, whatever. So you have to really work on building them up, or I do, in order to keep the back pain at bay. And so I'm going to talk to you about a super awesome pose that I love to do to help to relieve the pain when it's rather acute. This one, I do personally. I'm not a doctor, so I want to make sure I do a disclaimer, but I find that this is super helpful, and it is a modification to a pose that we do in a lot of yoga classes called wind removing pose. This is actually, it was really funny. I was being treated by a chiropractor postpartum for my first child, and he said, you should just do this, and it's this pose, and but you lay the leg off the bed, the side of the bed. So one of your legs is in wind removing pose and the extended leg's laying off the bed. And I thought, this is wind removing pose. This is a yoga pose. I can do this at home. And as soon as I started doing that, it was like immediate relief. So join me as we walk through a modification of wind removing pose. I'm going to show you wind removing pose without any prop. This is those of you that have practiced yoga specifically, they do it at every single class in a Bikram or a Hot 26 class. It's super awesome for you. You lay down on your back. Remember, I've got my yoga mat, and then I got a little bit of extra cushion because my hardwood floors hurt my back some. So you lay down on your back, and you're going to extend the left leg out and bring the right knee into your chest. Now, this is super awesome for you. This is creating a whole bunch of openness in your hip joints, and you can see along the left leg that's extended that it could be a little bit of a stretch for that psoas, or the hip flexor on the left. So this is pretty juicy. I like to do this one just plain because it's awesome. I'm going to do both sides. You can hold it for as long as you like, as long as your hips can handle it. And did you notice how I kind of rolled and got that hip right where it felt good? Because sometimes to just pull it into the chest, it can be a little crunchy. So I like to find the sweet spot where it feels good, which is just outside of the rib cage, that knee into the underarm, in this case my left underarm, and my right leg is extended out straight. Now if your leg is not straight, totally okay. Most people might be bent or might not even touch the mat. Totally okay. So this pose is awesome. You're going to stretch out your legs, which will help to create some space and some length in the back side of your body. But here is my special trick. I love this. You get a block. If you don't have a block, use a thick sofa cushion, use several blankets, several towels, and you put it up and underneath your sacrum as if we were to do an assisted bridge pose, right? So the sacrum is that flat spot right at the top of your glutes. Basically, there's like a little triangle at the top of your butt cheeks and the bottom of your low back, right? Crude, but that's your sacrum. It's going to be nice and flat, and you've got a nice little space for it. Let's bring that right foot in. See how my left foot's grounded into the mat. Find that sweet spot where the right knee goes towards to the outside of the rib cage. And now you can stay here with your left leg planted, but if you really want a super good juicy stretch, extend that left leg out. Oh my goodness, this feels amazing. It's really good for you. In Bikram and all the Bikram classes that you take, they say this is therapeutic for the hip joint because we're moving through the maximum range of motion in the hips. It's also really good for digestion. You can thank me tomorrow. But what you should really feel is because your hips are lifted ever so slightly, you've got a little bit more room to go for that left leg to extend down. So the front side of that left leg should just feel amazing. Like you should feel a super good stretch. You might even feel it coming up over and around the hip. That's that psoas muscle. That's that muscle that wraps around and helps us to walk and kind of helps to integrate the upper body with the lower body. Sit here and hang out here for 5 breaths, 10 breaths, as long as you want. It can get a little intense in that right hip, especially if you're squeezing to its maximum. So obviously do this at your edge. Don't push it any further. But really and truly, this is a super awesome stretch for that psoas muscle to create some space along the hip joints to help to ultimately relax the low back. Okay, so to get out of this, I, love to double dip and always get ab work. Squeeze the belly to the mat so slightly. Use belly muscles to pull that left leg in. Whew. Maybe you squeeze both knees in. Maybe you kind of wiggle around. I needed to wiggle. And now you're going to squeeze that left leg. Get it in that right good spot. Hug into the underarm. That right leg can plant onto the mat or it can extend out. Now, if you notice, this is my tighter side. It's okay. So my heel might not be down at all at first. It gets there eventually. And if your heel doesn't touch the mat, it's okay. Just enjoy the journey. Because I promise you, this is actually a decent and a fun and a super nice, juicy part of the journey. As compared to, trying to do drop backs or something. I love back bends, don't get me wrong. It's super good at strengthening the posterior chain, which is mega important. But they're a little bit more intense than, say, this wind removing pose. Remember to breathe here. So again, you're going to feel this along the front side of that right leg. You might feel this in the hip of the left, so up along the front, especially as you squeeze the left knee down. Remember, this is massaging the descending colon on this side. But what you want to really think about is just breathing and opening across this front side body. So I feel this here along the front side of my right leg, all the way around the outside of my right hip, and even when I'm really working it into my low back. And it's just basically awesome. Okay. So use your belly. See how I pushed my low back into the block a little bit more? Use that belly to pull the leg up. Maybe you give yourself a good squeeze. So it's kind of like a little bit of an inversion, right? A little bit of legs above the head. And then there you have it. It's a super awesome pose, a modification to that wind. And the benefits of it would help to create some space in the psoas muscle, the front, which ultimately helps to relax the low back. It also aids in digestion. It helps to get your hips moving. We want to move through the full range of motion, natural range of motion in all of our joints, especially as we age. So I hope you enjoy pose that you can do every day. You can do this before you get out of bed. You can do this like at night before you go to bed. Like, this is just a super nice, easy stretch to help you get your body ready to move. And if you're in a little bit of an acute moment where there's some pain, this is a super awesome one to incorporate and just into your daily life. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have been with me, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.